There's a lot of noise going on, so you have to work with me on that. We're here doing a revisit of the $15,000 house. This tenant just moved out after 2 years. I've been in here a few times while they lived here, taking care of a few repairs, but this will be the first time I've been in it since all the stuff has been moved out. I've already walked through it, did a very detailed video talking about all kinds of stuff, and I'll show that at the end of the video. But for those of you who can't handle but so much detail, I want to do a quicker walkthrough. The gist of what the house is it's dirty. You can see on the walls, this is where she had put stickers all over the walls, and this tenant had been here for 2 years again. So just all this darkness is not a shadow. That is what I'm assuming is candles had been burned in here. That's what it looked like when she moved in, just normal flat white walls. And then there's just this dinginess everywhere, almost like there was a fire. It doesn't smell like cigarette smoke, so I can't blame it on that. There is another type of a smell that is a faint smell in here, but I don't know if that's just products or if it's some sort of consumption that's causing that smell. Here in the kitchen. So the carpets will be replaced, the walls need to be cleaned, the floor has to be, the vinyl in here will be replaced, or I'll probably put another piece over top of it. Check the end of the video for my explanation of that. This door has some issues with rotting of the jamb. There's nothing covering it up on the outside, and there's a slab, so water shoots up on there when it rains. Appliances are good. I replaced these while she's here. Again, everything just needs to be cleaned and painted. In here, we've got semi-gloss paint, so it's real slick. It's easy to clean it. A lot of times you don't even have to repaint in the semi-gloss rooms. And I may go with a slight sheen in the rest of the house for ease of cleaning in the future. Bathrooms right here. So the layout of the house, again, come in the front door, living room, kitchen, bathroom, water heaters in here, and then bedrooms right here. So it's a 2-bedroom. Here we're looking pretty good. The bathroom mainly needs a cleanup, maybe some recaulking, checking to make sure nothing's leaking sink-wise, plumbing I mean. Replacing the blinds. The knob is missing on the heater there. Carpet in here is not bad. She was a single girl living in here and she didn't use this room. But I'll, end up replacing all of it. Front bedroom, same thing, dirty. Strange thing tenants do, I've never really fully understood what they're doing when they do it. You can't even see them, but there are staples, like staple gun staples, not lightweight staples. The staples just riddling the trim work. Again, this is one of those things, I think it's a tenant thing versus an owner thing. Closet, but yeah. This probably doesn't look like a big deal to a lot of people, but if you paid somebody to come in and do this, come in here, clean this house, and repaint the whole thing, you're probably looking at $3,000-ish to do the whole job. And once you factor in income tax, property tax, insurance, the cost of replacing the carpet, and whatever you do throughout the year, for example, in the 2 years she lived here, I replaced these 2 appliances. No big deal, it's not her fault. But you can start to see that the costs of, this is why your rent's going up, in part, not only reason, but people will, if things get like this, where a tenant comes in and makes it this hard on the turnover and this expensive on a turnover, meaning going from one tenant to the next, people are going to charge more for that. And then with labor getting more expensive, if you're having that work done, that's going to be more expensive. It's that thing you hear about when one person starts charging more, sort of everybody starts charging more. And yeah, and I have a lot of in me to want to be as nice as possible to tenants. And that's why I have a property manager, because if I did it on my own, I'm too prone to almost having too much concern for the tenant beyond what my responsibilities are as the owner of the property. And that's going to vary depending on the property and the person, of course. But again, I'm saying that outside of the lease is what I'm saying. So yeah, so that's what it's looking like. Let me take care of business and I'll show you the end result. Stepping into the house from the living room, as you can see, things are much cleaner. I'll give you the sort of the rough general idea of what happened. The house had to be, the walls and the ceilings had to be cleaned using degreasers, isopropyl alcohol to remove all the adhesive that was all over the walls. All the tacks were removed from around the windows, filling, drywall repair over here, trying to blend it in with the existing wall, having to remove trim and reinstall trim to do that repair. Heaters had to be pulled to do some of the painting and carpet replacement. All the carpet was replaced, floor in the kitchen was replaced. The bathroom floor was okay, that stayed. The bathroom got a serious clean. The whole house had to have a real cleaning. I was scrubbing the ceilings. That's, the level that it had to go to. After a cleaning, I primed the walls with Bullseye 123 primer, and all of that was sprayed. So the spraying is great because it just really just mists up into every little spot, and it makes just for a much, much nicer paint job. After that was sprayed, I sprayed the kitchen is in semi-gloss, the rest of the house is in eggshell. So the eggshell gives me a little bit of a sheen. You can see it in the ceiling there. Normally, ceilings are dead flat. Now, it's a rental house, so I'm not as concerned. In my personal house, everything's flat white walls, flat white ceilings. The sheen is just really low, so it makes everything look really nice and flat. I prefer it. And I'd say I prefer it in rentals. You can see looking down the wall. Now this is a textured wall, but you can see some of the spots where things have been patched and filled. Spots like this are gonna stand out. If this is flat paint, a lot of the stuff just disappears in its flatness because it doesn't have a glare to show you the problems. The same way as a nice new shiny car, the dents really show up in it easy. An old car where it's faded and stuff, the dents are there, but they don't show up as much. What else to say in here? So yeah, the eggshell is going to give me that washability in the future. Maybe help out with the cleaning next time I have to clean. Semi-gloss in the kitchen and bathroom, normal. So I did semi-gloss the bathroom. Everything in here is fine. All of this was removed. No, I left the toilet, but I masked off the whole shower, removed the vanity, and then wrapped the toilet, and then papered the floors with tape, removed the heater, replaced the heater in the bathroom, and the heater in this room needed a knob on the heater. It had disappeared at some point, so I was able to take the knob off the old heater, put it on this one, and then I bought a new heater for the bathroom. The heater it was just rough looking and, just been in here a long time. I had to get all this reattached properly, but things look good in here. You can see the difference. This is that fiberglass board that you put in showers, but then, really contrast the white. This would have been much whiter originally, but it's just over time, it just yellows. The spraying does an excellent job when you get into all of this type of stuff. Just spraying into all these areas, and all of the face plates and everything were removed, and I put tape over the switches and the receptacles. And then that just lets you go crazy spraying. And it looks so much better. And it's so much easier than having to fool with all this with brushes. Bathroom required a lot of cleaning. I think it had the same kind of light in here, but the old light was broken. So I had an extra one of these out of the trailer that I'm currently working on, but this was chrome. So I just spray painted it black, and it looks like a nice new light now. This had to come out. Which way does this thing open? It had a thorough cleaning. It was a mess in there. All this was a mess. All under vanity was so messy. This just went outside. See where it's got some dripping in there. I need to look at that. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that was for me cleaning and water just ran down or what. Might need to tighten things up a little. Glad I saw that. But I had this outside, and when I was spraying all the semi-gloss stuff, I went out there and sprayed this too. Works great for doing things like that. Nothing to report in here. This is unchanged. I just vacuumed it out and cleaned it out. So when I was spraying, I had all of the hardware off, and the doors just got sprayed with primer. And then in the doors are semi-glossed, and what I did for that is when I was doing my semi-gloss spray, I'll show you from inside of the room. Again, no handle hardware on there. And I would take the sprayer and say my fingers, where they're indicating on the door is the spray pattern. I would take the spray gun and go, psh, and I would run it right up and overlap it onto the trim. And then I come over here and I was just not getting the paint on the eggshell walls. With that said, if you missed it, just mist, a dry mist was getting on the wall just a little bit, this being eggshell versus flat, any kind of mist, it would hit this, it wouldn't even show. And white on white, you know, it doesn't even show. But the wall, the doors and the trim are now semi-glossed. And then after the doors, paint was dry and everything, I came back with a brush or a roller. I think I took a 4-inch roller and I just rolled the faces of the trim and then hit them with a brush. And then I'm not concerned about what the edges of the trim looks like. Again, white on white. You don't see the sheen difference between this and the wall, or even notice the sheen difference between this, which would be eggshell, because when I'm spraying the walls, I shoot this at this angle. So that's hitting into that spot. Again, once you spray, you'll never go back to a roller. I mean, there's cases where you're back rolling to kind of push the paint into the surface, but spraying and even back rolling versus just rolling, it's so nice. If I had to paint one room, I would want to do my sprayer, but I might roll it if I was just doing a room. But you know, when you're doing situations like where you're going through the whole house and you're painting everything, especially the fact that the old carpet was out of here, it's just the concrete floor. So let me try to pull up a corner. You can see there's just paint on the floor. That's where I basically paint to here, and if I get overspray on the floor, it doesn't matter. So I'll address this too. People see me do this and they go, oh my gosh, there's no carpet pad under there. I've never had a single tenant say anything about it. I think carpet padding is one more thing to get really nasty. It's more expensive, and then people will say it's not soft on your feet. What if it was a hardwood floor? What if it was a beautifully stained hardwood floor? It'd be complimented, and it's a hardwood floor. That's not soft on your feet. Under here is a concrete floor. If it was a polished, nicely stained, polished, cool concrete floor, people would think that was neat. That's not soft on your feet. This is softer on your feet. So that's always the argument to that. The fact that it's laid to the edge, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't move at all, but it makes it easy for me to replace. When I'm putting it down, I measure the room. I get a few more inches than what the room measures to. That allows for any kind of out of squareness. Then you can see the seam right there. It is carpet taped together. So this is a pressure sensitive, just you buy a box of it. It's basically double-sided. Well, it's just a sticky tape, and you stick it under there, and then you just bounce up and down on it on your toes, and it works great. This room, nothing special to report. Again, I don't know if I said it, all the lights came down, the smoke alarms came down, just need to put a battery in that one. All of the blinds, I think except for one blind in the house, got replaced. I'd come here out of request of the tenant to replace that blind and this blind about a month before she moved out. And I did it, and then she moved out. So I think one of them was reused, but the other one had already gotten messed up again in 1 month. Mini blinds are the single thing that is a guarantee that they all get destroyed, pretty much. I've never rented a house and came into them and then been okay. And I'm sure I said that in this video. And, my wife and I lived in our house for 8 years before moving, and one of them had, I think, a crack in one of those spots. And that was after 8 years and children in there. A lot of these people, it's just a single person, and oftentimes there's no kids. So I don't know how people are so rough on places, just as adults. Mostly people are disrespectful, which leads to issues. They don't do anything that leads to you believing they have any sense. They take really weird, oftentimes harder solutions to solve simple problems where they could have chosen a much simpler, nicer looking solution, less expensive, all that. So I don't know. A lot of people just don't know how to do anything. I think that is the increasing accusation that one can make, is that people are getting less and less skilled, so they don't know what to do. It's not that they are malicious in doing stuff. They just don't know what to do. I think I said it, all those tacks were removed. And then how I fixed a lot of those tack holes, again, this was riddled in them. I know you can't see that good. Let's see, doing that for the light. But there's tack holes everywhere, all over these. I just take my finger and I put a dab of caulk or either spackle, either one works good. And I just rub it and it's done. You just basically just rub it into it and it wipes any excess off. So that's how I quickly take care of lots of little small things like that. Let's go into the kitchen. I hope I'm addressing everything that I previously talked about. So that heater there, you look at that one, just not perfectly clean looking, but it's still fully functional. So that one stayed. Those had to come off. Baseboards had to come off for some flooring reasons. One of the repairs that I made, I think I talked about this. This was a simple repair, but it's a very, very sturdy repair. So the bottom of this door was rotted, and it's because this door doesn't have a cover over the door up top, which I'm gonna do and add that soonish. But I used my multi-tool and I cut across the jamb this way. And then the doorstop piece, I cut it this way and then this way and removed a section of it. So I replaced whatever the width of a door jamb is out of this down here, pressure treated wood. Before I slid it in there, I swung the threshold out, screwed in through the outside into this plastic filler piece that's in there, and then swung it into place with a bunch of liquid nail in there to kind of glue it all in place. I put liquid nail under the threshold so it's glued to the slab now. And then I put this piece in here with a bunch of liquid nail, and then it overlaps the two pieces, holds those together. Then you have the trim on the outside helping it. And of course, like I said, it's all glued together. And then this little piece here on my table saw, I had to kind of groove the backside for the actual weather stripping little flange to tuck in there. So this side looks a little rough, but it was solid. This side was completely, this was flopping back and forth. Now it's solid as rock. I'm not gonna jerk it around just yet. I just put it in there yesterday. I'm sure the liquid nail is fully set at this point, but I'm not sure. There was also some issues with the strike plate where it's cracked here. It looks rough, but I've gotten in there and I've done a lot of stuff to kind of re-solid that up. At some point, I'll end up just probably replacing the whole door unit, or potentially, and I just did this in the trailer, and y'all see the results of that in a future video of the trailer project. I just took the old door and I just remade a door jamb and then reinstalled it. And in this case, I could reuse the threshold if I wanted, or put a pressure-treated threshold down there, use pressure-treated lumber to make the jamb, and then pop that in. What I'm gonna do on the outside, I'll address that when I go outside in a few minutes. I'll show you what I did, some of the stuff I did on the outside. A little dark, let me let a little light in here. Oven, had to go outside, cleaned it out there with the oven cleaner inside and out. This was a new oven during the time the tenant was there. Same goes for the refrigerator. And I don't know if I showed the inside of the refrigerator in the first part of the video, but it was super dirty. I've got it back to looking like a new one now, at least on camera. In person, there might be a few little scuffs here or there or something, but it was so nasty. Like, it was just so much. Again, it just never got cleaned and stuff got spilled. And I just took it outside and just literally just sprayed the hose in it and just let the water just wash everything out. I disassembled it, hosed everything down out in the yard, and then got in it with cleaners and got all the stuff that wasn't hosing out of it. That was the easiest thing to do than to be just squatted down here in the floor. Speaking of floor, this is the flooring. This was a discount piece of flooring. Always just pick the cheapest, nicest, the cheapest, best looking option. And this is a very inexpensive, I'll say low quality piece of vinyl floor, but even a higher piece of vinyl floor would end up getting messed up pretty quick. So I go with an inexpensive piece, and when that gets messed up, I'm not out as much cost every time I'm replacing it. So I go for shorter lived products, but then replace them often than a more expensive product that might last 10% longer that you end up replacing just as often almost, maybe one more tenant between them. This allows me to be able to refresh places better. So I use inexpensive carpet, don't do the carpet padding, and that makes me much more likely to just fully replace the carpet, sooner than I might push it a little further if I had the additional cost of of putting the padding in. And the other thing you need to keep in mind too is I do all this work my own. Add in the cost of having it done, and then you really might push it, be like, no, I'll just run a carpet cleaner over that nasty dog peed on carpet and call it good. I'm much more likely to just go ahead and just replace it because I'm just out the cost. I can't remember what maybe it was like $300 or $400 worth of carpet total. I'll try to find all my costs for this kind of spruce up and kind of tell y'all. That'll give you an accurate idea. I don't know if I mentioned it in the first part of the video, but the property manager said for kind of coming in, doing a cleanup and a repaint job, not including new carpet or any kind of other repairs like the door and things like that, that it would be about $3,000 to do that spruce up in a full repaint. I don't even know if they meant a full repaint, but a repaint. And I mean, that's nuts. That is nuts. That might not be a lot of money for the guy who does it to make, minus his materials, but it's a lot of money to pay. That's the way I feel about a lot of stuff. It's a lot of money to spend, but the guy that you're paying the money to, it's not a lot of money for him to make. So that causes a pickle where the guy doing the work has got to charge enough to make it worth his time and all the consequences of doing business right with insurance and whatnot. But it's just so much to pay. You can think what houses like this rent for a year, and then you subtract just that. That's not even any sort of taxes, property taxes, income tax, property tax, insurances, and whatever else. And of course your goal is to make money. Don't forget that part. Sometimes people just like, as soon as you do that, it's mention that, it's, I don't know. People are funny with their opinions when it comes to housing. I think they tie it too much to home. I'm sentimental about the house I grew up in, but I've never, ever thought sentimentally, other than maybe some experiences you had regarding rental houses and living in them. But there is a group of people, meaning there's a certain amount of people that no matter what it is, they could own the house or they live in the house, but they heavily identify wherever they live as their home, even though it's so temporary oftentimes. And that's something I don't understand. That's off topic though. But I think that's pretty much it. I'll show you outside, although I might put that part on the front of this video. Here we are outside. Hope it's not too windy. Might have a couple wind noises. But I removed the old roofing material on this little awning and bleached and then repainted the wood and then put down a piece of leftover roofing metal off the trailer project. That was just an end cut off one of my pieces. So I put that there. It's actually two pieces to make it wide enough. I think that is 42 inches wide is how that was. I did not repaint the house, but I repainted the trim work. And then you can see there's white on the bottoms of the trim. That's some sort of plastic PVC material to flash it out over the trim. I ended up, it was missing on these two. So I took some aluminum and redid that. Other than that, things are unchanged. I did just cut the grass in the backyard. It's rather nice looking because no one ever really uses it and the grass had grown in real thick. I cut it and it's not being walked on all the time. These are a couple walnut trees back here, which I'm not a fan of in a yard because you get walnuts, but yeah, it's nice kind of having some shade. Everything looks to be expected so far. And we'll be taking it all in. Power's on. You can see how dirty stuff gets. Like, look at that. This was just normal looking 2 years ago. I believe I had painted all of the walls. So they were freshly painted. All of this area like this is where the tenant had put stickers on the walls. This is one of my things I dislike the most. You can see all this adhesive stuff pulls paint off the walls. In areas that are drywall, it'll pull the face of the drywall off. This stuff is hard to deal with. It's very nitpicky to fool with. You can't just come in and wash the walls like you would for a lot of this dinginess. You can wash the walls off and then do a repaint. You have to come in and use some sort of a solvent to get all that adhesive off. Otherwise, the paint will bead on the surface. Gosh, it's dirty. I don't know how people do this in 2 years. I'm not like whining in terms of like average landlord stuff. This all falls within something that's fairly normal to me, but I just don't see how you can go from freshly painted white walls to this level of dinginess. I mean, this is even probably where the stickers were is going to be a little bit darker than what it did look like. And it does not smell like cigarettes in here. So it's not cigarettes. You know what this probably is candles. I bet this is somebody who was burning candles all the time, and there's a sootiness on the walls. There's a little bit of streaking coming down right there. So this is the chimney. So I need to, at one point I had an aluminum cap over top the actual chimney. So that's where some water maybe is getting down the chimney, and you know, it's not much, but a little dirtiness there. So this is a cinder block house. So these exterior walls are masonry, and then the interior walls are framed. They're really, yeah, I mean, they're just drywall, but they're a textured drywall. You can see right there, which actually does help. So when you paint it, that little bit of texture kind of breaks up the surface enough to where when there's small issues, they don't show up as much. So the house has baseboard heaters, very basic, no air conditioner. So tenants use window units, and there's baseboard heaters. In the future, I would like to put mini splits in this house. So this is the bedroom. You know, no damage in here, but just again, like, you know, look at that. That's not just a shadow. That's how dirty it is. So adding my hand in it brightens the screen up a little bit. It's a little yellower looking, and a little darker than what you see. Let me see if I take my hand out. But again, nothing, you know, I'll come in here and I'll replace all this carpet, and all these carpets can act as templates to cut the new ones. So it's not too hard. I mean, it's fairly easy to come in here and just throw the carpets in and work around the edges with a razor blade. But tricky areas, you know, you can just pull that section of carpet, lay it on the other one, and cut it out like a template. Blinds, let's see. The blinds were something I dealt with in this house not that long ago. I replaced that one like a month and a half ago. And I replaced this one a month and a half ago. So this is a perfect example. This has been in here. This tenant called and specifically wanted the blinds replaced, and they've already, you know, messed them up right there. Again, I have no idea why tenants are like that. You know, a lot of times when I say comments that sound negative about tenants, I get a lot of a little bit of backlash in comments. In the YouTube comments regarding my feelings towards tenants. But it's just proven again and again and again, there is a big difference in the way that I see a renter treats properties versus an owner treats properties. Now, there's plenty of people that live in their houses they own, regardless whether they owe money on the property or not, but houses that are theirs, you know, there's plenty of them that live dirty too. But there is a disrespect, I think, that exists within tenants. The staining on the floor in here is not the tenant's fault. This is something strange about this, a concrete slab. And there's some sort of stains in the slab that when I put a vinyl floor down, it comes through the vinyl floor. So I'm not sure what to do about that. If it was a tiled floor, I could come in here and tile this, and obviously that's not going to go through it. I may just, because this piece of vinyl floor is in good condition, it's not a rip in it anywhere, I may go ahead and clean it and then put another sheet of vinyl on top of this and see if that staining goes through that. If that doesn't work, I'm not sure what I'll do. I may need to do something different. Not a fan to have things like this happen while people are living here. With that said, I'm assuming that's what it was because it's happened before, but I can't remember if it happened in this spot. I thought it was over here, a stain. So this could be some sort of an issue. While this tenant lived here, I put this oven in. So the things I had to do while she lived here is I replaced the refrigerator, I replaced the oven, and I replaced the blinds in the front of the house, so that room and then the other room, because she asked. And then she also asked if I could add some gravel to the driveway. The driveway is just right outside the house here. And then she moved out a month later. So that's the way it is. Yeah. My thing I've said, and I like the girl that lived here, but my thing that I say is that tenants that live on the dirtier side of things, and this is dirtier in person, like this busted through the drywall there. This is dirtier looking in person than it's coming across on the camera. And I mean, look at that. Look at this, the trails through here, of just never doing anything. Now, some of this is just the difference in the walking path itself, and the carpet being packed down, but it's dirty. If you ran a carpet cleaner over this carpet right now, the water would be dark brown, 100%. It would be filthy. But what I've always kind of concluded is on rental properties where the people live dirty is they just live in it long enough to where it's just too dingy and dirty and depressing, and then they just move to the next one. And so they're not going to clean the house, and they can't call the landlord and say, like, I'm not going to come and repaint a house while someone's in the house. If someone lived in a house for 5-10 years and they said they wanted to repaint, I may give them permission to repaint in a color that I approve of. That's after they've shown that they're living there for a while. You'll have people that will move in and say, can I paint the walls red or black or blue? And they're only going to stay there for a short amount of time. And usually the sillier the request, the people who are the least amount of trouble don't ever ask to do anything. You don't ever hear from them. You show up and the house looks normal. The people who ask for the silliest of stuff, like they want to turn a rental house into a home, are the people who often stay the shortest amount of times. And because they're fickle about everything in a lot of cases. So let's take a look at the bathroom. Floor in here looks great. Nothing wrong. A little dirty. Bathtub. Little rust spot on the damage to the enamel there. I may kind of touch up the bottom with one of those little kits or something. The bathtub surround is this fiberglass board stuff. So I always, clean it really good and kind of re-silicone the joints. In here, there's the window is in the tub, and that's because originally this was just a bathtub, and I did the shower and added the shower head plumbing. So then in that case, what I do, and this is in my own personal house, I have a shower rod, just run one against the wall, and that comes down. All this waterproofs it. Now you can do things to waterproof windows. Glass block window would be a great solution right here, especially with it being masonry. It'd be very easy. Not going to do that right now, but I just, provide 2 shower curtains, run one down the wall, a frosted one, and then they do whatever they want here. Everything looks fairly normal in here. This was the second house I've ever purchased. So this is the oldest house that I own. It's not oldest, but the one I've owned the longest at this point. I bought this house 15 or so years ago now, I believe. And I had so little money when I bought this house. This purchase price on this house was $15,000. I bought it from someone who had it given to them in a will. And strangely enough, the person who had it given to them in a will received this house and a handful of other houses. And the person was mentally disabled. So I purchased this house from the family, the family of this person. They listed it on Craigslist at the time. And I saw it on Craigslist. They listed it for $15,000. I paid $15,000. And what I negotiated in the deal was owner financing. So I owner financed it to the brother-in-law and the sister of the person who received this house in the will. And the reason they were given it in the will was this person, the one I said was mentally disabled, handicapped, whatever you call it now, they did sort of some yard work, handyman work for a person that owned a bunch of houses in this area. And that woman ended up with the houses after her husband had died. And so she left all the houses to this person. And then those houses were sold off and have been used for the care of this individual over time. He is probably in his 50s, 60 years old at this point. And I did meet the fellow one time because him and his brother had some stuff here and they came here with the sister and the brother-in-law. So the owner financing deal on this, and I've talked about it before, but just as a reminder, that deal was purchase price $15,000. There was about, let me see, what was it? I can't remember. I think about $1,500 of back taxes that had to be paid on the house. So I said, I will do a $1,500 down payment. That cleared the taxes. Then I paid closing. So at closing, I was about $2,500 to $3,000 for me to acquire the house. And then that left about $13-some thousand on the loan. The interest was probably about 6%. That's 6 to 7% is always what the owner financing interest has been when I've bought houses that way. I've done it twice. The payment was $262, I believe, and it was over 5 years, so over the course of 60 payments. When I got down to about, I think it was $17,000, sorry, what was it? I got it down to about $1,700, sorry, somewhere around there, and I sent him a check for that last remaining amount, because at that point, I could do that. And it cost me originally, I believe, $3,000 to get this house ready to rent, at most. But that's probably about right. I had the baseboard heaters, I had carpet, some vinyl flooring, used appliances, all the doors and everything were here. The house had already been like semi-gutted, but the walls were all in. When I say semi-gutted, I just mean the demo had been done. There was no carpet or tile or anything in the house. There was, I think the bathtub was here, or I might have got that bathtub even from somewhere and put it in here. I can't remember, but there was no toilet, no vanity. It's just bare. Everything was bare. I believe but I really can't remember even if the tub was here. And then I just paneled in these walls because the walls were knocked out around the edges. I made the vanity. I got the sink from a Habitat Restore, and I did this. That was a Habitat Restore. Everything in here was just super duper inexpensive used stuff that I bought at the time. And so at that time, I had bought my first house about a year before this one, and I wasn't even done fixing that one up. So sort of as I was wrapping that one up, I was getting and starting this one. These were in here originally, and the doors, I guess, had been thrown away for some reason. And I think at the time I bought this, it was popular to have open cabinets, so the sister of the man that owned the house thought it would be nice, so they just threw the cabinets away. I wish they wouldn't have. I've just never done anything different than this. It's always just worked. I made this, so I bought this funny colored countertop from Restore as well, and it was really long, and it already had the sink cut into it. So I had plenty of room both ways to kind of position this, and then I just made the cabinet to suit the countertop. Everything, the sink, it all, that was a separate purchase from the Habitat store. And then things like the plumbing, of course. I had to redo the plumbing at some point on, I think, the second or third renter ever in this house. So a washing machine goes here. This plumbing goes through here, it goes into the wall. Vanity in the bathroom goes into it. And then there's access behind the stove for the drain for the tub. That all got packed full of grease because the tenant, she had some issues, and she would just dump grease down the kitchen sinks, and it just ruined the plumbing in the walls. And it was the galvanized pipes, and it just rusted them all out too. When I cleared the pipes, they all just leaked at that point, so I had to replace all that with PVC. Another issue in this house is this back door. It's rotten out right here. We'll not gonna do a lot outside right now. They cut some trees down next door, but this is what the backyard looks like. Pretty normal. Kind of nice, not super nice, but some grass, a little concrete pad. So I'm thinking I originally had a cover over this back door that kept water from splashing up. what I may do is put a post here, and then just do a really lightweight roof and just turn this into a covered area. The backyard is sunny, so that would be a nice little seating area, and it would, the utility for me is it would protect the door really nice, and it wouldn't cause the door to rot out. So I may replace or repair the door jamb on here. It's a steel door, it's a hollow core steel door, but yeah. So mostly dirty. So I think that is it. The last thing to mention is when I first started renting this house, I rented it for, it's a 2-bedroom. I think I rented it for $500. So I was making a $262 payment and renting it for $5. So half of my rent basically was going towards the payment. This house, I owned it for probably a year before I got it rented, because just very limited to what I could do financially. Dingy. The house has that little twinge of weed smell, marijuana. I don't know if that's, a lot of people have like lotions and stuff, you know, now that have that smell to it. So it's hard for me to always tell, but I mean, everywhere you go now, you smell the marijuana smell, which I'm not a fan of. I don't care what anybody says. I think that smell just being everywhere when you're driving around in stores and just everywhere you go now, it seems like you just catch whiffs of that all the time. And I guess the relatively small amount of people compared to the masses that enjoy that, it's a big, you know, I haven't talked to anybody that likes it. Anytime that smell comes up, you see people, you know, your children ask you what it is, and you go, I don't know, you know. Oh, well, that's not what we're talking about here. But that's it. That was a full explanation. You see what the interior looks like, and then I'll go ahead and do what I'm going to do and show you the results.